All right, so good evening, everybody. My name is Lawrence Claremont, and I'm your Pinellas County Council PTA President. And would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. All right, so it is my sincere pleasure to welcome you all to the third and final 2018 Pinellas County Council School Board Candidates Forum. Before we begin, I would like to take a brief moment to introduce our partners. And first is the Executive Director of the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions at St. Petersburg College, David Clement.
Thank you, and a good evening to all. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Seminole campus of St. Petersburg College. We're delighted to be hosting this series of candidate forums with the Pinellas Education Foundation and with the Pinellas Council of PTAs and the League of Women Voters. We sincerely thank them for including us in this important event. Seminole, by the way, is one of 10 campuses in the St. Petersburg College system. It's home to roughly 5,000 students on any given semester. They'll be returning to class in just a little over a week on August 13th. And I just want to put in a word that we still have seats open. If you or any young person you know is interested in advancing their education, it's not too late to register, and the place to do that is right outside this door on your right, the Student Services Center. They're open about 10 hours a day, and I recommend you come in to do that if you're interested or know someone. Obviously, education is SPC's business, and we strive to support the K-12 system in any way we can, because after all, today's first graders and kindergartners and middle schoolers and high schoolers are tomorrow's student body for us. And it's the school board's job to establish the policies that will ensure that those students are college ready when they come here. I commend the candidates here on the stage and those backstage for showing that they truly care about children by stepping forward to seek this important office. I trust that the winners, whoever it is, will provide the effective leadership needed to maintain high standards and reach every child to ensure their academic success. So once again, thank you all for coming, and welcome to St. Petersburg College, Seminole.
And next, it is my pleasure to introduce Pinellas Education Foundation's President, Dr. Stacy Carlson.
So I guess this is the talking head portion of the program, but we'll get to the really important stuff in just a minute. First of all, I just want to thank you all for caring enough about public education that you would show up to these debates. We've had 2 so far. This is our 3rd one, and we've been able to educate and help educate hundreds of people across the community about what's really important to our candidates in education. We're also really grateful. We've been doing this for probably more than a decade in partnering with the Pinellas County Council of the PTA, with the League of Women's Voters, with St. Pete College on this really important effort. Our foundation believes in accelerating academic achievement for all students through the leveraging of resources, innovation, and relationships. And so while we do a lot of fundraising in the community, we also think it's really important the role that we can play in advocacy, in raising awareness, educating, conducting research, and sometimes even advocating in Tallahassee for important legislative issues that we think are going to ultimately affect student achievement in our community. We know that you're all here because you care about the students in Pinellas County, and we really appreciate and commend you being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Carlson. And finally, I would like to introduce Rachel Garofalo, Voter Service Chair and Director with the League of Women Voters of the St. Petersburg area.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the St. Petersburg College for hosting this School Board Candidate Forum series. The League of Women Voters is proud to have worked alongside our community partners, the Pinellas County Council of PTA and the Pinellas Education Foundation, along with St. Pete College Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions. And a special thanks to our moderators, Al Rochelle of Bay News 9 and Ernest Hooper of Tampa Bay Times, as well as the school board candidates themselves for their willingness to run for public office. Elections are our chance to stand up for what matters. Most of us, and to have an impact on the issues that affect us, our communities, our families, and our future. We're all equal at the ballot box, but only if we vote. The League of Women Voters encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy, which is what we're doing right now tonight. We envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. Through the League's award-winning voter education programs, our volunteers equip voters with essential information about the election process. We have long been a trusted source of objective, nonpartisan information about candidates and issues on federal, state, and local levels. This year, you have many choices to make on the lengthy primary and general election ballots, and you'll want to do your research before you get to the polls. To help with this, the League of Women Voters has produced a new and improved Pinellas County Voter Guide, a one-stop shop for nonpartisan election information online, optimized for mobile viewing. So whether you're at the doctor's office, in the park, or on a quick lunch break, you can research your ballot choices on the go. To learn more about the League of Women Voters and our resources, visit our table at the entryway. And in closing, elections impact every aspect of our lives, and we all need to weigh in. It's clear by your presence here tonight that you understand the importance of making informed ballot choices. So I hope that you'll evaluate what you learned tonight, along with information available through other trusted sources, and cast your fully voted ballot in the August 28th primary election. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rachel. I also wanted to introduce our timekeepers for tonight, Joanna Perez and Gaylor Larson, located here at the front of the stage. Thank you for what you guys do. And now it is time to turn it over to our moderators for this evening. Mr. Al Rochelle, Senior Anchor for Bay News 9, and Ernest Hooper, columnist and editor for the Tampa Bay Times. Gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Senior in more ways than one. Glad to have you with us tonight at the 2018 Pinellas County School Board Candidates Forum. We're in the mid-Pinellas County area, the Seminole campus of the St. Petersburg College, known as the Digitorium. Got to be the coolest name of any building in all of Florida, Digitorium. The forum is brought to you by the Pinellas County Council PTAs, Pinellas Education Foundation, the League of Women Voters, and the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions at St. Petersburg College. You're going to meet the candidates running for 4 of the school board district seats up for election in the August 28th primary. In these nonpartisan races, if no candidate wins the majority of the vote in the primary, that is winning by 50% plus 1, the 2 candidates receiving the most votes will run off in the November 6th general election ballot. You can vote early at any of the 3 supervisor of elections offices from August the 18th through the 26th. Also, vote by mail ballots are available upon request. Visit the Supervisor of Elections website at votepinellas.com for more information about voting. By the way, if you fill out those early forms, you won't get any more robocalls because the politicians pay for them per person, so believe me, it works. Joining me tonight, Ernest Hooper, it's all I'm saying, from the Tampa Bay Times, our media partner. East Hillsborough bureau chief and columnist for the Times that we all love. His columns make so much sense, and I'm often rooting for him, although I haven't sent him any of my bumper Snickers yet. I've got some of those Ernest, you got to have.
Yes, please send them. I need them.
Glad to have you with us tonight, Ernest.
Glad to be here tonight, Al, and good evening, everyone. We're looking forward to a robust discussion about many of the issues facing the Pinellas County School Board as we prepare for another school year. The Florida legislature has passed multiple pieces of legislation that divert much-needed funding from traditional public schools in favor of charter schools and non-public school options. So, adequately funding traditional public school programs will be a challenging priority for the school board. Also, with the recent tragedy at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, the safety and security of our schools has become a major concern, and the school board must help provide solutions to protect our students at school. Finally, as always, the school board must continue to bridge the achievement gap between minority and non-minority students.
All right, format time.
Okay, we'll go over the format very quickly. Tonight's program will consist of 2 moderated forum segments. Candidates running in single-member districts 6 and 7 will take the stage for the first segment, followed by candidates running in at-large districts 2 and 3 for the second segment. We will flow immediately from the first segment to the second without breaking in between. We expect to wrap up the forum at 8 o'clock, after which candidates will stick around until 8:30 or so for those of you who would like to meet and talk with them in person. The question format maximizes the number of responses we can get from the candidates within the time we have. This will include a wild card where each candidate has an opportunity to address a topic they feel has not been adequately discussed tonight. Candidates will be given equal time to respond. We'll also introduce lightning round questions that require one-word answers, such as yes or no, or agree or disagree. Questions from the candidates have been solicited from the general public through the Pinellas County Council of PTA's website and social media. With the exception of lightning rounds, the candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question. At the end of the question and answer period, each candidate will be allowed a 1-minute closing statement, the order of which was determined by number draw before we entered the digitorium. Before I turn it over to Al, I ask that everyone, please silence your cell phones and hold your applause until the end of the first forum segment. Thank you. Al?
My wife's telling me to bring home a gallon of 2%. I'm sorry. I was supposed to do that last Monday night after our first debate. I forgot. We're going to begin the forum with the candidates running for seats in District 6 and 7. Those are what they call single-member districts, meaning the candidates are elected by the voters who live in the particular voting district. However, all 7 members of the elected school board represent and make decisions that affect the entire county. Each candidate was asked to supply a short biography and a profile. You've got that in there, so make sure you take a look at that and read that. So let's introduce the candidates. In District 6, they are Bill Dudley, Lorena Grizzle, Matt Stewart, Therius Bethel, Renee Flowers, Bilan Joseph, and Nicholas Wright. All right, let's get started with the questions. And remember, many of these questions have been submitted by you, the citizens of Pinellas County, through the Pinellas County Council PTA website and social media. For the first question, we're going to start with candidate Wright, and as they answer the question, they'll automatically go to their left all the way around. And they're very familiar with this, so we know they'll hit it right. So candidate Wright, as a school board member, what is the one idea that you would like to see implemented that would improve the overall health and wellness of our students?
Good question. Thank you very much for asking the question. I would like to see that the school board adopt a policy of improving mental health facilities for those students among us who have come to school with issues. The reason for this is that many of these students sometimes, unfortunately, are incapable of managing their behavior on campuses, which leads to disciplinary issues. And many teachers have told me that it's important for us to find a way to help those young people, those young minds, to better control themselves. There is movement right now to change that, but it's not fast enough or big enough. I'd like to see improvement made quicker. Thank you.
Okay, now there's one technical issue. They tell me that you have to tap on your button to be able to see it. Is there a green? I'm looking at the audio person. So is there a green light that stays on then? Yeah.
Stays on, it's been on.
Okay, yeah, tap. Okay, good. Nicholas, make yours on. Is you can see the green light there? Okay, good. We all got it. Okay, Bill, your turn.
All right, thank you. Well, My number one thing I'd like to see done is accountability. And what I mean by that is accountability by faculty or teachers, administrators, and students. One of the pressing needs in this county is a good attendance policy. We have children who are not going to class on a regular basis, and we're spending a lot of resources tracking those kids down, and particularly in the high school level. And what's disconcerting is that if a student misses a lot of time, I know one case where 40 days they were absent and took an online class in 2 days and got credit. That's not acceptable. We need to establish a good, firm attendance policy.
Ms. Grizzle?
Other than the mental health, which of course I'd like to see more counselors in the schools, I'd really like to see the community schools develop more in areas that need them, to where we not only treat the child but the family and provide resources for both the family and the child. We need some aftercare tutoring. We need adult tutoring possibly at night. We need them to help resume writing. And we need to have these students feel welcome to stay longer, but not force them to sit in front of a computer and do some kind of work. We want them to want to come to school. We want them to want to learn, and we want them to want to be with their friends and learn how to work together, because that's what we have to do when we grow up.
Mr. Stewart?
The question about how can we deal with health and wellness for our students, I think there's a couple things that the school board is doing really well. First off, I think one of those is having mandatory recess time for our students to get outside and be active to combat childhood obesity. I think the partnership with the Board of County Commissioners to put nurses in our schools to be able to provide for students who do have health issues and don't have access to adequate health care. And I think one of the things that we can continue to work on is to move the school start time later. You saw the board take steps in that direction this year. I think the effects and the research in that area are outstanding, and I think the direction in which we need to move school start times is important. And I think the other issue, especially as we talk about school safety, is to make sure that we're addressing the underlying causes of violence, not only in our schools, but in our communities. And having strong mental health services to be able to provide for students to learn how to deal with anger issues, deal with the violence they may experience in their community, and bring with them to school are going to be important services for us to offer in our schools to make sure that our students are not only healthy and well, but that they're getting a great education.
Mr. Bethel?
Good evening, everybody. It's funny you ask this question. I was just at the school today, kind of first day back for a lot of staff and teachers. I was in the cafeteria with the summer break students, and one complaint they always have is about school lunches. I've eaten them myself every now and then, and I have to admit they're not the greatest. They can be healthier. We talk a lot about what our kids do outside of school and the foods they eat. I think we need to focus on really getting a nutritious diet for our kids while they're there at school, because that's the healthiest meal that they're going to receive in some of their homes throughout the day. Also, we need to start teaching them about healthy lifestyles. They get home, and then they see their parents eating Taco Bell and McDonald's all day. And so it's kind of hard to tell them one thing and then we show them the same things at school by the food we give them. So maintaining a healthy diet at school and giving them lifestyle choices that are educated and also more fitness as well.
Ms. Flowers?
Good evening, and thank you so much for having us here on this evening. I'm excited to be able to report that through the state legislature, they provided us with an additional $2.1 million that will in fact provide for counselors to be accessible to students and their families. We also have partnerships with other community social service organizations such as Gulf Coast Jewish Family Community Services with their counseling center and Suncoast Mental Health to provide, again, those wraparound services to parents so that they can have an extraordinary mental health care. I'm also excited about the physical education. As a matter of fact, the state of Florida utilizes our model with other school districts when it comes to recess and bringing back physical education. We also have put some additional components in our health program classes so that our students are able to understand what their health means versus what their mental health means and how those things work together so that they are better prepared to go about handling their day. Last but not least, I am super excited about the partnership between Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners providing us with the dollars to provide a nurse in every school. Thank you.
Ms. Joseph?
I think that a lot of my colleagues here have said a lot of things that I agree with. Mental health programs in our schools is vital, mostly because we don't have enough people staffed in those seats. You have a lot of, for instance, at my school, there's one social worker for the entire school. I teach at Azalea Middle School, and we have a lot of students who do need the care and the guidance from social workers, guidance counselors, behavior support specialists, but we do not have enough people in the school to actually adequately staff the students or help the students who are there. So I'm happy to hear that there's money that comes in, but I'm really hoping that the money is used the way that it's saying that it should be used. I'm unfortunately not very confident in our board. We've seen a lot of promises, but we don't always see we don't receive it on the end in the classrooms and on the schools. So I'm hoping that they do what they said they're going to do, because our students are definitely in need of it.
Thank you. Ernest?
Okay, here is question 2, and we're going to start with candidate Stewart with this question. What will you do to address the problems schools face with declining funding as they also try to meet the challenges of ever-growing enrollment, children with special needs, and new education technology?
I've said it before, and I'll say it again this evening. There's a war on public education, and it's starting in Tallahassee. This year, we got a little over 47 cents per student increase to be able to better educate your children, our grandchildren, and those children in our community. We're dealing with diminishing resources, and that those funds continue to be diverted to charter schools, to voucher programs, and now even moving the funding away from the school board so that the charter schools can actually construct buildings. While we're in hurricane season, a quick reminder, you will never be able to evacuate to a charter school because charter schools operate under very different standards, including the building standards. But I think what can we do about this is building strong relationships with our legislature and being able to advocate for public education by building those strong relationships going forward, to not only show why do we need the money, but how are we adequately using the funds that have been entrusted to our care, by building great career academies that are going on here in Pinellas County Schools that are A-rated and that are recognized by the Ford Foundation, by showing the great amount of choice programs that your children have.
We keep hearing a lot throughout this forum about declining funds and also a lot about funds being received. The main focus, I feel, is there's no accountability and nobody being questioned with a strong question from the families and the caregivers of our students. It goes back to taking back our schools as a community and as parents and as caregivers. Once we can't do anything about Tallahassee. Tallahassee is there. We have to start where we're at right now. That's getting together with the parents, with the teachers, and saying, look, this is what we're going to do. We need to know where the funds are going, and this is how they need to be allocated. And until we hold somebody responsible, it's not going to change. So we can complain about Tallahassee and who's there all day long, but until we start to fight here and get together with each other and on the same page, it's going to stay the same. So let's start here at home to give our kids the best opportunities.
Ms. Flowers.
Thank you. I disagree with my opponent. We can do something about Tallahassee. It's called VOTE, and you can do that on August 28th. I do believe that Pinellas County Schools has the ability to raise our millage rate by a referendum. If we are given that opportunity, and that opportunity has to be provided by the state legislature, we will be able to generate additional revenue to do some of the things that we need to do and would like to do, such as to raise teacher salaries and to make sure that our buildings are hardened so that we can utilize them to the best of our abilities and make sure that they're safe for our students. I also believe that we can continue to partner with a number of organizations like the Ford Next Generation Education Community, like the Education Foundation, and many other grants that we write for and in fact receive. The Bill Gates Foundation, it provides us with additional revenue for our technology throughout the district because we have an extremely large district. While it is true that we have an ESC department, I do think and I believe that we've had a number of conversations on trying to expand our services to our students with exceptional disabilities.
Ms. Joseph?
I agree with utilizing external sources to bring in money. Yes, we can vote, but we continue to hear the same problems about legislator. We have to take as much power and responsibility that we can ourselves. There are a lot of businesses and private organizations that absolutely want to partner with Pinellas County Schools to help us to improve the services that we provide for our students, because if we properly educate our students, then we're going to have a better workforce that's going to be entering into the society within however many years. I also believe that we need to really evaluate what we are spending our money on now. Sometimes we shoot the gun and say that we're going to do things that we don't necessarily have the funds to spend money on, like putting armed guards in all of our schools. When the decision was initially made to do so, the funding was not there. So we have to be wise with what we have, and we have to be willing to strategically partner with people in our community to get more funds for our students.
At the expense of sounding like an echo chamber, I totally agree with Dr. Stewart and with Ms. Flowers. I've been saying for a long time that what we need to do is to make sure we vote for the people in Tallahassee who will support public education and strongly fund public education here in our county and our state. Second thing we need to do is to partner with community organizations. And Ms. Flowers spoke about the Bill Gates Foundation. Pinellas County Schools have been reaching out to various philanthropic organizations for different kinds of funding in the recent years. I would say continue to do that, but also bring those people in to help us in our schools, to help us to determine which programs are best for our students. And if we begin to do that, I think we'll see a good turnaround in our schools. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Dudley.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think it's important to know that we should have a good working relationship with our local and state officials. You know, putting ourselves in an adversarial position doesn't help things a whole lot. And one of the ways we can correct that is really impress upon them that unfunded mandates are killing us. We have money in our school budget, but because of unfunded mandates, we're having to use that money to take away from other programs. And so I think that it's real important that we develop a relationship with our state legislators. And part of the experience that I have had, not only from my 38 years of teaching, but when I was on St. Pete City Council, I was a good steward with those guys, and we met and we talked and we had a good relationship. And I think that is key to getting things done instead of adversarial. Thank you.
Ms. Grizzle.
Well, I attended the budget hearing on Tuesday night, and we have our millage rate is allowing us to have more money because the property values are up. Unfortunately, the legislature keeps taking it away. And enrollment, I think, is down from, we lost 100 teachers in the spring in high school, so I'm not sure that enrollment is up. I'd have to see the figures after the 10-day count. But regardless of that, we have to advocate for more, and we have to advocate for some partnerships with, for instance, the YMCA, because they've actually come forward and asked to help with the Riviera project, and we have some excellent partnerships for after-school programs where the Juvenile Welfare Board is providing money, and we just need to continue that because that's the only way right now that we can get this funding with only the 40-cent increase that we got.
Thank you, candidates.
All right, this is a lightning round question for the whole panel. You've got one, you have to answer it yes or no. I agree or disagree. And here's a question. Have you attended a PTA, SAC, or District Advisory Committee meeting during the 2017-2018 school year and voiced your opinion on any particular topic? Mr. Dudley, we start with you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. No.
Yes.
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 All right.
All right. On to the next question. This one will start with candidate Grizzle. In an era of limited financial resources, how will you enlist support for public school spending from voters or taxpayers who have no children in the public schools? How can the school board prove itself accountable to those citizens?
Well, everything that we do and everything that we buy and every service that we get has come from a person who's been a student in the school system. And the only way that we're going to improve our services and especially to our senior citizens is to provide the best education we can for our medical resources, for everything, from sheriff to any training that we get. We have to have the best, and the only way we're going to have the best is have the best schools. And to me, that's not even an argument that you could even possibly defend, is that we have to have the best education, we have to have the best colleges to get these children to where they need to be and to where we can count on them, because this is our future.
Okay. Mr. Stewart.
I think one of the most discouraging things when you're running for school board is you talk about your race and you tell somebody and the first thing they tell back to you is, oh, I haven't paid attention to school board because I don't have any children in there. So I think this is a real issue in our community, and we need to talk about this because I frequently say that if you don't have a child in school, you feel no connection to your neighborhood school, and we haven't done a good job about being able to connect people to the schools. At the same time, I balance that thanks to Pinellas County, the referendum 2 years ago did pass, where voters did realize that the schools needed money for the arts and for technology. But I think one of the things that we have to continue to emphasize in the community is that we're in this together. Our schools are going to rise and fall not solely on teachers, not solely on parents, but on this community as a whole coming together and valuing public education. Because your property value and my values ride on that. The ability of our students to seek employment and have a good education and a career education, get employed in this community rides on that. And businesses look at our schools to know whether they are willing to relocate here. So your jobs and my jobs depend on that also. And we have to show people what the value is in public education.
All right, Mr. Bethel.
To me, it comes back to the community and us doing some things that we haven't been doing. I for one, can take responsibility that I haven't volunteered in a while in my community. As much as I could have. I take responsibility for our school, our kids doing bad on the test, because I know I could have spared an extra hour of my day to sit down with some kids I knew that were struggling with some things, but I chose not to do that. So I took responsibility. And us as a community have to take responsibility for where we are as a community. We say we have limited funds in our schools, but I think if you get the community and parents excited again about school, we can eliminate some of those paying positions where you have people willing to volunteer to come in and do those things. I see that Johns Hopkins volunteers come in every day, but people don't know about it. So we have to get out in the community and get people that want to volunteer and give back and say, hey, we have opportunities, please help us out. We have parents and community people go out to football games and basketball games every weekend for free. They can do the same things in the school we have opportunities for.
Ms. Flowers.
2 words, Social Security and Medicare. That's why we want to make sure that our students are receiving what they need, because we want them to be able to pay into those resources for when we become elderly as well. That's on a serious and funny note, but also on a more serious note as well. We want to make sure that we have an ample and viable workforce. And many of those individuals who may not have children in the system have grandchildren. They have nieces and nephews in the system. And so this is a wonderful way for them to just think about all of the things that individuals did when they were younger. And they paid into the system so that education can be the best that it can be. And we most certainly can compete globally the way that we should. We no longer are just comparing ourselves with the next door neighbor or the next county. We're comparing ourselves to London, to Europe, to Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, and other countries. And we want to make sure that our students are ready and prepared for that. And the only way to do that is just to make sure that we're all supporting one another and that we're allowing those children to dream the dreams that we once were able to do so ourselves.
Okay. Ms. Joseph.
I think it's twofold. One, yes, I agree. When we invest in our children, it absolutely benefits everyone. There's so much research that shows that when the education within a county or a city is strong, you have lower poverty rates and you have lower crime rates. So that off the bat is something that should help people want to invest in our schools. But yes, our kids should be prepared for the world that's coming after they graduate from high school, because they are the ones who, yes, are going to have to care for us eventually, but we want to make sure that we are being as responsible with them as possible. They're counting on us to make decisions that are going to set them up for success. And so if we all are invested, we all are on board with doing whatever we need to do to make sure that they are successful, then that's what we should do. And finally, seeing board members actually out and about in the community so that we know who they are, we see their faces, and we understand who they are. I think people would now feel welcomed and a part, like a community, like a family.
Okay. Mr. Wright.
Another good question. Actually, I've had this question put to me by people on my campaign trail, and here's my response, and in fact, their response to me. We don't know what's happening in your schools. And the answer to that is, oh. The problem is that Pinellas County School Board does not adequately market the schools to the communities. Pinellas County School Board does not invite the public into schools on a regular basis to look at what the students are doing and to sell the work of our students to the community in terms of driving interest in what our children are doing in our schools. I think if we did more of that, more people will feel comfortable about supporting schools and school functions, not just for football games or basketball games, but for the cultural events that the schools put on also, as well as for academic achievements. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Dudley.
Thank you. Well, first of all, it benefits everyone. And education is the key to a good, strong workforce, which creates housing and other ancillary things that go on to making us a great community. And business owners understand. They move here from elsewhere. They look at our education system, and they look and see the employability of those people. And it is really incumbent upon us to continue to strive to make our schools the best. We are only going to be as good as the weakest school. And we need to continue to sell this point to the public and let them know that we as a community are in this together, and if we all do the job, then we all benefit from it, regardless of whether you're retired or not. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates.
All right, next question. Candidate Flowers, we'll start with you. An individual school board member has no authority. Only the board as a whole can make decisions for the district. What skills or traits will allow you to contribute to effective operations of the board as a whole?
First, knowing your role, knowing where you have authority and where you do not. Secondly, making sure that you have a clear understanding of the policies that govern that district and being able to implement those policies and make sure that they are being utilized across the district. Thirdly, making sure that you are as educated as you can possibly be as it relates to the budget. There are many line items within the budget that you cannot cross funding streams. And oftentimes we hear from individuals or we receive questions about why can't you pay for this and why can't you enact that? It's because you cannot cross those funding streams. In addition, I think it makes for a wonderful environment when the board can get along. You may not necessarily agree on every vote or every action, but it does make for a better administrative component when you actually can work together in a professional manner and when you have a positive relationship not only with the superintendent, but with the staff and teachers and support staff in the community.
Ms. Joseph.
Would you mind repeating the question for me, please?
An individual school board member has no authority. Only the board as a whole can make decisions for the district. What skills or traits will allow you to contribute to effective operations of the board as a whole?
I think understanding education, understanding actually what our teachers, our support personnel, understanding what they have to do every day is key, because you're making decisions that are either going to help them be successful or are going to hinder them from being successful. And as a teacher, I've been teaching now for 11 years, going into my 12th year. I think that's something that is very valuable and something that should be celebrated. I believe that a board that governs education should be governed by educators. I also believe that you should have a strong working relationship or strive to have a strong working relationship with the people who you are going to have to sit on this board with, because the ultimate goal is the same: provide the best academic experience for all of our students. And because I am a team player, I am collaborative, I am an honest, straightforward person, but I will do whatever is necessary to make sure our students are successful. I would absolutely utilize that as a board member to partner with the people who I have to work with.
Mr. Wright.
Whilst I agree with the statement made by Ms. Flowers, I would say that, along with Dr. Joseph, being an educator is a must for a board member. We have to know what's happening in our schools. We have to be in contact with our schools on a day-to-day basis to know what is happening, to be able to effectively make decisions for our children and our teachers in the school system. I'm a 13-year veteran of the school system. This is my 14th year starting now. In that time, I've learned a lot about our system. And I think that experience as a classroom teacher coming into the board is one that would be valuable in helping the board make decisions that are best for our students, their future, and the outcome of our schools.
Mr. Dudley.
Thank you. There are two functions of the school board. One is to hire and fire the superintendent, and the second is to set policy. And it is incumbent that those people who are setting the policy know what's going on. And that's where I think experience is a big factor. You know, my 38 years in the school system, I went through 5 decades, and it covered a lot of stuff. And during that time, there were many, many mandates and things that came down, and then they were changed later because of the climate change and whatever. It is very, very important that when we make policy, they should be made based on need, statutory compliance, and appropriateness. And I think the experience is where it really pays off. Thank you.
Ms. Grizzle.
Well, teaching is a collaborative effort, and that is probably the best experience you can have to be on the school board is to have been a teacher, which I've been, like Mr. Dudley, I've been there 14 years. And one of the things we haven't talked about is the school staffs that we have to work with. And the secretaries, the other day, the school secretaries came to the school board meeting, and they're talking about a 67% turnover in secretaries. A school secretary, which is a really important position to try and keep that same person there with the same kids seeing her every year. So we have to look at that. We have to look at our turnover for our therapists. We have to look at the fact that we have, for instance, in our ESE's kids, we have 2 years they're behind, or maybe 3, when they come into school, and their teachers are expected to bring them up to speed in 1 year. So I think just knowing all this and having experience in this is what makes a good school board member and helps make, you have to bring these stories to the board and to make a consensus agreement on it.
Mr. Stewart.
One of the number one things is to realize you work with a group of people to move things forward and to have that collaborative level of support with the board members. I'm really proud of the support I've received financially from Linda Lerner, who's here this evening, from Eileen Long, who's also on the board, and along with the support from Renee Flowers. Being able to have those working relationships going in the door with people who currently sit on the board and know that the skills that are needed there. I think the other piece is to be able to work with the superintendent. I think that part of it is to understand that the role of the board is to oversee and to supervise the superintendent and ultimately to make hiring and firing decisions for him along with the board attorney. I'm really proud of the experience and the work that I've been able to do overseeing groups of teams to have hiring or firing authority to bring that. I think the other piece is how do you set policy and being able to work on policy and that, having been in government for almost 10 years now, both at St. Pete College, Pinellas County government, and Hillsborough County government, and working on policy and also budget issues. That's the other role that your school board has, is to be able to set the budget. Having experience with those and bringing that to the board is important.
Mr. Bethel.
A lot of great comments up here, but to answer the question, I'm a team player. We're all here for the same purpose. That's to win the game, as in getting our kids and our teachers the best education as possible, exceeding the places we've been for the past 5 or 6 years when it comes to education. I'm not a certified teacher, but I've been working with children since I was 15 years old. Started working at my church nursery, and I've worked with children all from churches to DJJ to middle school to high school. Through that process, I have not been able to complete anything alone. It is not just working with the board members that I'll be working with, but working with the parents or working with teachers and also working with the students. It's a team effort. So if I want something done, I may not have the same agenda as this person here, but if our end goal is to get to the same place, to get our kids and our teachers the best education and to exceed where we've been, then that's what we want. And working together as a team, that's what I'll bring.
All right. Our next question is a lightning round question. I wish we had a sound effect.
There it is.
All right. So, Candidate Dudley, you will be first on this lightning round question. Do you support Amendment 8 to the Florida Constitution, a three-pronged initiative that would establish school board term limits, codify civics education in public schools, and allow for the implementation of a state authorizer of charter and other schools.
No.
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 No. I don't like the term. I wish that we could do the,
Maybe, but you can't.
I know, I know.
You've just done it.
2
whether
out
you
of
want it
3.
to or not.
Ain't bad, 2 out of 3, but no.
Okay.
No.
All right, let's go on to another question. And I'm just going to warn you, we're going to go a little bit over the 7 o'clock hour because we got started just a hair late, so just to kind of give you candidates a warm-up here. So this is the next question, and we're going to start out with candidate Bethel. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing our public schools right now, and even more important, what is your plan to address it?
The biggest challenge, again, I have to say, is our community involvement, getting our parents involved and getting them the resources that they need. We have a lot of elderly caregivers. We have a lot of single parents, young parents that don't have the education to pass on to the students, whether they're in elementary school or high school. We also face a challenge of keeping our teachers happy, basically. You know, our teachers put up with a lot of stuff. You know, classroom changes just out of nowhere is a big pet peeve of theirs. But keeping them happy and giving them proper salaries. If we can do those two things by getting involved and letting our parents know the options and being there for them when they actually come to the schools and they ask for help, I think that's the best way to get started, letting them know that, hey, we're here and we're willing to assist.
Ms. Flowers.
I'm going to say Tallahassee and lump a few things into it. First would be the budget, because we do have constraints on us, and I'm glad someone talked about the fact that we didn't receive the funds to implement the safety program. The other would be testing. We have moved our students through Common Core, FCAT, and now FSA. And once our students and our teachers become comfortable with the testing measures and we see our students moving forward, then we see changes. And so we're back to teaching to the test instead of teaching because you desire to learn. Assessments. Our teachers have their salaries and whatnot that are linked to the VAM scores, and sometimes that means that you are evaluated on students that you don't even teach. Most certainly, when we're looking at how it is that we provide certain materials for our students throughout the district, and enhancing the technology and also new construction and even rehabilitation of some of the older structures. So that's all lumped into one thing, which deals with finances, and it moves down from there.
Ms. Joseph.
I would have to say the achievement gap is probably the biggest issue that we are facing and have faced for a very long time in Pinellas County. I think Mr. Dudley hit the nail on the head when he said you're only as strong as your weakest school. Our school system will continue to be average when we continue to have failing schools. It's just simple math. We've lost 3 schools to a private corporation, LSI. We have to pay them to take over our schools. That's unacceptable. I teach at Azalea. We moved from an F to a C, but I can tell you our kids are still not proficient in reading. They still are 2 and 3 grade levels behind. So until we can close that achievement gap by, one, helping with literacy, and that's going to take community partnerships. And there are organizations in our community that want to work in our schools. They might be in 1 or 2 right now, but across the gamut, if we would partner with them, they bring the volunteers, they bring the curriculum, they bring everything that's needed to get our kids to move. And they're moving 1 and 2 grade levels in 60 days, in 90 days, so it's doable. But the achievement gap is number 1 for me.
Mr. Wright.
I think the biggest problem we have in our county is actually, as Ms. Flowers said, our politicians in Tallahassee. I think when we can get to a stage where we can elect the politicians who are going to help us get the funding that we require for public education, we'll continue to be at a loss. Now, we can overcome that to a certain extent by finding additional funding sources. Again, reaching out to those organizations and those community organizations who will help us to fund our programs and thereby help to improve the outcome of all of our students. Also ending that achievement gap that Dr. Joseph spoke about. Thank you.
Mr. Dudley.
Thank you. There's all these are good, and I'm going to jump on the achievement gap because I think that it is very critical that we can bring up those non-performing students in schools, bring them up, and there's a couple of ways I would like to do that. First is there's a 6-goal achievement plan that was instituted a year ago, and I think we're going into the second year of it, and it is based on 6 goals. 3 of them are for academics, 1 is for minority training, and 1 is for discipline, and 1 is ESE based. And the second thing I think we need to do is institute more AVID schools, advancement via individual determination, and that's college prep. And the second and third thing is creating and redesigning existing schools, such as Midtown Academy, and fundamental school approach should be another thing we put in with attendance and parental involvement in vocational and technical training.
Ms. Grizzle.
Well, funding has always been the big elephant in the room. But let me talk about something that's on the mind of the 7,000 teachers that reported to work today, is behavior in the classroom. And one of the things we're doing, and I was on a 6-member panel this year that we looked at restorative practice. We brought it to the board. We asked for training. We're getting that starting tomorrow. We have, by the next year, we'll have the community start to be involved in this. We'll have the students learn how that we're going to have repair the harm that's been done. And this will be a great thing, along with some of the other programs where we're doing, and also with our discipline. But the teachers need to have support. And I think that one of the things that we can do is continue to increase our early childhood education so that we can get this behavior started early, we can get the classroom routines learned, and we can get on the way to having a healthy student in our classrooms. Thank you.
I think the thing that we need to focus on is both closing the achievement gap and building up our neighborhood schools. Our students are going to be successful if we have strong schools, we have involved parents, and we have a community that believes in public education. I think one of the things that we can do in our schools is to begin to look at having strong literacy coaches to be able to help our students. So much of the testing relies on students being able to read, and if they can't read, they're consistently going to be behind. The other piece is to look at school social workers and mental health professionals who can come into our schools to be able to help students who are dealing with behavioral issues and acting out in the classroom. And I think the other piece about our schools is we can look at providing strong wages for both our teachers and staff and having a work culture that supports teachers. The other thing is I think we need to support parents. No parent sends their child to school going, I hope you fail today, but not every parent knows what to do to be able to support their child, and I think we can help with that. And the last thing is I think we need to actually go out into the community to build support for public education and instead of telling the community, hey, come to the school today, we actually have to go out and meet parents where they're actually at already.
Okay, now we will give each of the candidates an opportunity to address one topic that was not discussed in tonight's forum. And we'll start with candidate Wright.
One of the things I'd like to see us do as a community is to increase the early learning facilities available to poor and also working families who can ill afford to pay the exorbitantly high, what I think now is high child care fees for the youngsters. One of my colleagues said earlier on in one of the answers to the questions I would ask, spoke about increasing the early learning availability for our students. If we can get our kids started as young as possible in certified early learning facilities, I believe when those children come to elementary school, they are well on their way to being adequately prepared to succeed at the elementary level and to go forward to the middle school level and then on to high school and be successful contributors to society as they graduate from high school. Again, it has to start at the early learning level, and hopefully we can increase funding for those resources. Thank you.
Mr. Dudley.
Thank you. I am running for the school board because I believe education of our children is in the utmost importance. It deserves a commitment of policymakers to ensure the success, and because of this, I believe that local school board members must be able to devote all of his or her time and energy to the task at hand. It is a full-time commitment to service. above and beyond just attending board meetings. Committee meetings and meetings with other government representatives, meeting with the public, and school visitation should also be expected to those we elect. I chose to embark on a political career after I retired because I believe you have to be available to the people you serve. I am not sure how candidates who have other full-time employment can meet the demands of that position. I have the educational experience and the record of public service and the availability to complete the demands of that position. Thank you.
Well, the subject that I think hasn't been discussed enough tonight is special education, because we have a very large population in Pinellas County. One of the things that we have is a shortage of speech and language teachers. We have a shortage of OT, PT. We're having to contract out. We have vision. We have hearing. All of these therapists work very hard, and they have to work long after their contracted hours. And my hat's off to them because I know how hard they work. I think it's important for a school board member to know and have lived in this world to where we see how hard these people are working to bring these children up. One of the other things is we don't have any viable after-school care for these special needs children. They're unable to let themselves in at home. They can't self-regulate. And the parents have to leave the workforce. And so I think that we could solve a lot of problems here, because it's not just the child, it's the family, all the siblings of this child that are hurting. And I think that we could do better.
It's our third forum and our last one, and I want to tell you what the question was that wasn't asked that I wish I would have heard over the last 3 ones. I wish you would have asked me, what do you think is going really well in our schools, and what are you excited about being able to build upon? I want to tell you a couple things that I think are going well in our schools. I think we're doing a really good job about building up our career academies and allowing students who aren't going into the college classroom to be able to have a viable option going forward. I'm excited that students who don't have health care and don't have access to health care at least have a nurse at their school thanks to the partnership with the Board of County Commissioners. I'm proud of our rising graduation rates, especially among our Hispanic students, who now the only percentage difference between them and white students is 5%. We do have work to do in this area, but it's getting better. I'm proud that we've implemented recess, and our students have an opportunity to go outside and to play each day. I'm proud of the work that we've done around school safety, that when you drop off your child, or I drop off mine, or your child in your neighborhood goes to school, that they're going to be safe there at the end of the day. Do we have work to do in this area? Yes, but we're moving in the right direction. And I'm proud about the wraparound services that we've implemented. Tutoring that's free to students before care or after school to be able to get the support they need.
I've been preaching life skills for our middle school students over these past few forums, and today when I went to work, I spoke with 3 teachers on this topic, and that was one of their main concerns. They have a lot of high-flying students in their classes that need outlets other than books of reading, history, and mathematics that they're having a hard time grasping. So the teachers are feeling the same way that I felt. If we give them some more options to use their minds and be a little more imaginative and actually give them skills to take care of themselves, basic life skills on how to balance a checkbook or just how to balance money at all in general, what it takes to get a job at 15 or 16 years old, how to dress for a job interview at this age, how to cook for yourself because your parents may not be home. So life skills is a huge area that's missing in our middle schools, and that's what I think is needed to get these kids ready for high school. So bringing life skills back, I think, will be a great change for our middle school students.
I think one thing that we haven't discussed is the inability for some of our graduating educators to pass the state certification test. In Pinellas County, we had 68 individuals that no longer will have employment until they're able to pass the state certification test. I find it difficult to believe that someone has attended some of the most prestigious universities that we have in America and that they are not qualified to teach because they cannot pass the test. It is the same thing that we're saying to our students. That's why I'm excited about being able to work with Senator Roussan on finding another avenue by which teachers can in fact pass that state certification test and do what it is that they desire to do, which is simply to teach. Teaching is a profession that everyone touches. No matter what job you have in your community, you've had a teacher that has assisted you in getting there. I'm also especially proud of our Pinellas technical trade programs. We had over 1,000 students graduate from a number of trades. We have technical trade trainings in our high schools and our middle schools. I'm grateful for those.
All right, Ms. Joseph.
I think equity is probably one of the things that I would have liked to talk about a little bit more. Our students do not receive the same quality education across our county, and I would love to see that change. It was mentioned earlier about our wanting to prepare our students to compete globally, and that's the shift of America as a nation. But if you look at other countries that are outperforming us by leaps and bounds, Finland, China, Korea, they have provided equitable education for every student within their system. It doesn't matter what race you are, what learning ability you are, what socioeconomic status you come from. They provide you with the same level of quality education because they understand that that is going to do everything to propel their country forward. And if we focus that energy into Pinellas County, we could be amazing. Not just the magnets or the fundamentals or the gifted or the advanced placement, but every classroom should be a stellar academic experience for all of our students.
All right, now we're going to have our closing statements, and you'll have 1 minute. And just a reminder, as you're looking at the candidates, remember these three right here under District 6, they are running against each other. Those four on that side are on District 7. They're all running against each other. But we've combined them, so what we did was we came up with a very sophisticated manner to try to figure out who would do the closing statements. I cut up 7 pieces of paper, put numbers 1 through 7, and they drew those numbers. And so that's the order that the closing statements would go. Mr. Dudley, you're first, and you've got a minute.
Thank you. I believe serving on the Pinellas County School Board is vitally important. The school board has 2 functions. One is to hire and fire the superintendent, and the second is to set policy. Those policies are the foundation of our schools. And they should be based on the need and the statutory requirements and appropriateness. Because of this, it is vital that we have board members who have experience or the complexity of our schools. Remember, theoretical experience is not the same as practical experience. I have 38 years of experience, and my wife and daughter are currently teachers. Additionally, my experience as a St. Petersburg City Councilman gives me a special skill set that gives me a special skill set that no other candidate has. And we must be able to have a working relationship with our local and county and state officials. Vote for Bill Dudley on August 28th.
Nicholas Wright, you're next.
Good evening, folks. Thank you all for being here this evening. I and the rest of the panel greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be here to listen to us. I'm running because members of my community, both teachers and local communities in which I live and socialize, have expressed to me their dissatisfaction in the way the board has conducted business in the schools in South St. Petersburg. I'm running because those people, teachers and community members, have told me repeatedly that there needs to be improvement. I'm running also because members of my community want to see a full-time board member that not only sit at board meetings, but also spend his or her time visiting every school in their district to find out from teachers and students what it is that they need to get done and find out how we can help them get it done. I'm running also because I think, as a 13-year school veteran, I'm able to take that message from the schools back to the board and get things done. Thank you.
Mr. Bethel, number 3.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you all for being here tonight. I'm just excited to be here. Excited that school is starting back. I'm excited that I'm working with a lot of great teachers. I'm here to put a fresh face on education. As you can see, there's not a lot of people that look like me up here or in the past. But, you know, I relate to the kids. I go to the school every day, and I can relate to these students in a way that I don't think other people can. Working a social service background, you come into a lot of things that touch you. You get emotional about it. You want to take home with you. And when you give up on them, like a lot of these children feel like they've been given up on, it does something to them. So I don't want to give up on these kids because I felt education gave up on me when I was their age. So I'm here to give everything I can to them and to get the community back involved, get our caregivers what they need, and to revamp our education because we're lacking. We're lacking behind. We're in a technical age, and we need to give our students every single opportunity to be great, not just at one thing, but at all things across the board.
Ms.
So
Joseph.
vote Bethel.
Oh, sorry.
Well, my name is Dr. Balan Joseph. I am a wife, mother of 3 beautiful kids who attend schools, elementary age schools, and 1 2-year-old. And I'm a teacher at Azalea Middle School. My time at Azalea Middle School is what made me get into this race. I was not interested in politics at all. But working at Azalea and seeing the number of kids who could not read, seeing the number of students who did not have access to textbooks, we haven't had clean drinking water in about 5 months. We've been having to give our kids bottled water. Pencils and papers as opposed to kids having access to technology. That is not what a school should look like. And if it's just one school in our district that is just underserved, that should not be something that we're okay with. Again, we are only as strong as our weakest school, and there are too many schools in South County that are weak schools, and they can be stronger. And we've been waiting for our board to do something about it for too long, and it's time for us to do something now. So I'm asking you to vote for me as a result. I'm standwithbalan.com. I have a plan of how I plan to help change the school system. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Matt Stewart. I am running for school board. It's great to be here at the Seminole campus, a campus where I've had the opportunity to teach. I'm a Pinellas County native, born and raised here, and I got a great education in our schools, which allowed me to go on and earn a doctorate in education at the University of South Florida. And I come from a family very dedicated to public service, a mom who taught in our schools, a father who was a police officer, and my sister's a firefighter. And I'm proud to be invested in my community, to be out and about in this community, both as a foster parent, a member of the PTA at Shore Acres, and a member at St. Peter's Episcopal Cathedral. And I'm proud of the 10 years of experience that I've had to work both at St. Petersburg College and both for county government, both in Pinellas and Hillsborough. And I think we need new voices on the school board, a voice who's a young professional who's raising his family here, one who actually has children, as a foster parent will have children in the schools going into the next school year, and to be able to offer a new perspective, having worked in government on issues related to policy and budget. 5 out of our 7 current school board members came directly out of the classroom, and it's time for new voices.
Ms. Grizzle.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and especially our 2 school board members I see out here, Linda Lerner and Joanne Lentino. And I want to thank Linda Lerner for equally supporting me the same amount as she gave to the other candidate. We have a wonderful group of candidates here, and everyone running for the board has something to offer. However, I bring a depth of knowledge and 14 years of teaching experience in special education in Pinellas County schools, as well as working with intensive reading programs, struggling students with varying exceptionalities, and working at L300 school under state sanctions. You have to work there to understand it. I grew up in this county attending public schools. I've served, not just been in the PTA, I've served as a PTA board member for years and as a past president. I bought 80 pizzas one day for something. But you know these things when you've done it. I have my card out there. It shows that I would like to have school safety, focus on learning, increase early childhood education. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, being informed voters, and ask for you to vote for Lorena Grizzle for school board. Please visit my website, and remember, no one knows the classroom like a teacher.
And Renee Flowers, number 7.
Good evening, and thank you again so much for spending your evening with us. YouKnowRenee.com. Feel free to visit my website, and you can check out my Facebook page, and you will see just how involved I am, not just in the community, but also in all of the schools. I want to also tell you that we are moving forward in Pinellas County Schools. Do we have more work to do? We certainly do. Do we shy away from that? No, we do not. We take that challenge head on, and I'm very proud of that. I also want to share with you that we have several partners throughout the community, and we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do if it were not for those partnerships. I attended and graduated from public schools. My 3 children, who are now adults, did, and now I have a grandson in New Heights Elementary, whom I stay very busy with, and I'm very excited about him. But I also know from going into those schools that we have a number of things that we're doing right, and we have a number of bright and shining moments, but we also have areas where we need to focus a little bit more, and we are doing the work. I ask that on or before August 28th, you vote Renee Flowers for re-election for Pinellas County Schools, District 7.
Let's give our candidates a round of applause, shall we? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and it will be 5 minutes like we do in TV. So it will be 5, and then we'll get the other candidates up here.